The twin
I
sons of
won't let
Meridian
anything
set the sky
happen
on
to you.
fire.
I know.
Sarah
We'll face it
Valen
together.
pressed her back against the
Always.
corrugated metal wall, feeling the vibrations of the siege through her spine. 19 hours. 19 hours since the Ravagers had descended from the void like a plague of teeth and chitin. 19 hours since she had watched her soldiers die. 47 defenders at dawn. 12 left now. The compound's north wall had fallen at hour 7. The east barricade crumbled at hour 14. Now they held nothing but the command bunker and the dying hope that someone somewhere still remembered Outpost Meridian existed. Sarah's rifle kicked against her shoulder. One shot. One Ravager convulsed and fell, its mandibles still clicking in death. She didn't celebrate. There were always more. Lieutenant Caven stumbled past her, clutching his side. Green blood seeped between his fingers. Zarathi blood, the same color as hers. "Commander," he rasped, "we're out of ammunition in the west sector." "Commander." The word felt like ash in her mouth. She commanded ghosts now. Ghosts and the dying. "Fall back to the bunker," Sarah ordered. Her voice remained steady. 25 years of Zarathi military conditioning ensured that much. "Seal the doors. I'll radio command again." Caven's violet eyes held no hope. On Zarath Prime, hope was a luxury, weakness wearing a smile. But he obeyed. Sarah waited until he disappeared into the bunker before allowing herself one trembling breath. Just one. Then she activated her comm unit for the 7th time. "Meridian outpost to Zarath command. Priority Alpha. Do you copy?" Static answered. Then a voice crisp with bureaucratic indifference. "Zarath command receiving. State your status, Meridian." Sarah's jaw tightened. "We are under sustained attack. Ravager forces estimated at 2,000 plus. We've held for 19 hours. Ammunition depleted. Medical supplies exhausted. We have 12 combat-effective personnel remaining. Requesting immediate evacuation and air support. I repeat, requesting." "Request denied." The words landed like a blade between her ribs. "Command, we cannot hold this position. We need Lieutenant Valen." The voice carried the weight of finality. "Meridian's strategic value is no longer sufficient to justify resource allocation. Your orders are to maintain position. Command out." The comm went dead. Sarah stared at the device in her hand. Maintain position while they died. While the Ravagers tore them apart piece by piece. While command calculated that 47 Zarathi lives cost less than a single transport ship's fuel. On Zarath Prime, the weak perished. The strong endured. But what did you call soldiers abandoned by their own strength? An explosion rocked the compound. The west wall this time. Sarah heard screaming, heard it cut off too quickly. 11 now. She keyed the comm again. Her hand didn't shake. Zarathi discipline forbade it. "Meridian to command. We're out of ammunition, out of time." Her voice remained level, professional, as if she were filing a supply requisition instead of writing her own eulogy. Permission to request last rites for my unit." A pause, then, "Permission denied. Maintain position. Command out." They didn't even grant them an honorable death. Sarah looked at the comm device for a long moment. Then she crushed it beneath her boot. The Ravagers came at dusk. They swarmed over the broken walls like a living nightmare. Sarah met them with the only weapon she had left, a combat blade, its edge chipped from 19 hours of desperate fighting. She killed 3 before they overwhelmed her. The first Ravager's talon opened her abdomen. The second carved a line across her ribs. The third would have taken her head if Caven hadn't thrown himself between them. Sarah watched him fall, watched the light leave his violet eyes, watched him become ghost number 46. She didn't scream. Zarathi warriors didn't scream. But when the 4th Ravager loomed over her, mandibles dripping with her squad's blood, Sarah Valen did something she had never done before. She closed her eyes and wished for death. The explosion came instead. Fire fell from the sky. Sarah's consciousness flickered like a dying star. Pain was a distant thing, now muted by shock and blood loss. But she felt the heat, felt the ground shake as something massive descended through Meridian's atmosphere. Voices, alien voices, speaking a language her translator chip struggled to parse. "I've got movement in the command bunker." "Careful, could be Ravagers." "Negative, that's a Zarathi uniform. Female. Critical condition." Hands touched her. Gentle hands. Impossible. The Ravagers didn't have gentle anything. Sarah forced her eyes open. A face swam into focus. Pale skin, blue eyes, a scar cutting diagonally across the left cheek. Not Zarathi, not Ravager. Human. The story said humans were weak, soft creatures who valued sentiment over survival. But this one lifted her as if she weighed nothing, as if her life had weight. "I've got you," the human said. "Stay with me." Sarah tried to speak, tried to ask why. Why save a dead soldier from a forgotten outpost? But darkness pulled her down before the words could form. The last thing she heard was his voice, steady and certain. "Get her on the medevac, now." Then static, another voice distant and sharp. "Captain Kane, Fleet Command orders, stand down. You are not authorized." "I don't recall asking for permission." The darkness took her. Consciousness returned in fragments. White ceiling, rhythmic beeping, the scent of antiseptic and something else. Something that didn't smell like death. Sarah's combat instincts activated before rational thought. She lunged upright, ignoring the scream of torn tissue and medical alerts. Her hand found the IV stand, an improvised weapon. Better than nothing. A figure stepped into her field of vision. The scarred human. He raised his hands, palms out. Non-threatening, but Sarah had seen predators use that gesture before. "Easy," he said. His voice held no fear. "You're on the UHNS Valiant. You're safe." Safe. The word had no translation in her dialect of Zarathi. "Where is my unit?" Sarah demanded. Her voice came out raw, damaged. "Where are my soldiers?" The human's expression shifted. Something that might have been grief flickered across those alien features. His silence was answer enough. The IV stand clattered to the floor. Sarah's legs gave out. She would have fallen if the human hadn't caught her. She struck at him, weak blows pathetic compared to her training. He didn't restrain her, just steadied her, absorbed each impact as if he deserved them. "I'm sorry," he said. 2 words. Inadequate, meaningless, and somehow the first honest thing anyone had said to her in 47 dead soldiers. Sarah stopped struggling, not because she accepted it, but because her body had nothing left. She sagged against him, hating her weakness, hating that she lived when they didn't. "You should have left me," she whispered. The human guided her back to the medical bed. His movements were careful, practiced, as if he'd done this before. Caught broken soldiers before they shattered completely. "You can leave any time," he said quietly. "But where will you go?" Sarah stared at the sterile white ceiling. Where would she go? Back to Zarath Prime, where Command had calculated her life's worth in fuel costs. Back to a culture that considered survival without victory the worst kind of failure. "Who are you?" she asked. "Captain Matthias Keynes, Terran Marines. You can call me Matt." "I won't call you anything," Sarah said. "I'll be gone as soon as I can walk." Something that might have been a smile touched his scarred face. "Fair enough." He turned to leave. "Wait." The word escaped before Sarah could stop it. "Why did you come? We're not your people. Not your war." Matthias Kane paused at the door. His blue eyes met hers, and Sarah saw something she didn't have words for, something that made her chest ache. "Someone was dying," he said simply. "That made it my war." Then he left. Sarah lay in the alien medical bay, surrounded by technology that shouldn't exist outside classified Zarathi research labs. She touched the dermal regenerator patch on her abdomen, felt the tissue already knitting together. Magic wearing a medical label. Through the observation window, she glimpsed other crew members. A silver-haired human checking medical supplies that must be their doctor, the one who'd stabilize her in the field. Dr. Thorne, she'd heard them call him. On Zarath Prime, her wounds would have meant death or permanent maiming. Here, strangers from another species had decided she deserved better. Sarah closed her eyes and did something she hadn't done since childhood. She cried. The human kept a schedule. 0600, noon, 1800, 2200. Every 6 hours, Matthias Kane appeared in her medical bay with the same quiet routine. He brought food, analyzed, confirmed safe for Zarathi physiology. He checked her IV fluids, asked if she needed anything. She always said no. He stayed anyway. On the second day, Sarah pretended to sleep when he entered. Through slitted eyes, she watched him settle into the chair beside her bed. He didn't speak, didn't disturb her supposed rest, just sat there reading something on a datapad. After an hour, he left. Sarah opened her eyes and stared at the empty chair. On Zarath Prime, warriors didn't waste time on the wounded. You recovered or you didn't. Sentiment was weakness. Attachment was liability. But this human sat vigil over an alien soldier like she mattered. The thought unsettled her more than the Ravagers had. Third day, Sarah was strong enough to walk, strong enough to access the ship's public data terminals. She told herself she was gathering intelligence, assessing her captors. Lies came easier than admitting curiosity. The Valiant's crew was predominantly human, with a scattering of other species. She watched them from the medical bay's observation window. Watched them laugh together. touch each other's shoulders in casual camaraderie, show weakness without shame. It was alien in ways their biology wasn't. At 1800, Matthias arrived with her meal. This time Sarah was sitting up. "You're looking better," he said. "Your medical technology is impressive. Clinical, distant, safe. On Zareth Prime, wounds like mine would be fatal. Good thing you're not on Zareth Prime then." Sarah's fingers tightened on the blanket. "Why, wow? Why what? Why are you here every 6 hours? Like you have nothing better to do than watch an enemy soldier heal." Matthias set the food tray down. He met her eyes with that same unsettling directness. "Because you shouldn't be alone. I don't need company. Maybe not, but you have it anyway." He turned to leave. Sarah's voice stopped him. "They left us to die." The words came out harder than she intended. "My own command. They listened to us bleed out over comm and told us to maintain position." Matthias didn't turn around. "I know." "How do you know?" "Because I listened to the same transmission. 17 hours before we arrived." Ice flooded Sarah's veins. "What?" Now he did turn. His expression was carefully neutral. Too neutral. "Fleet Command received your distress call, forwarded it to Zarath Command. We monitored the response. When it became clear no help was coming, I made a choice." "What choice?" "To come anyway." Sarah's mind raced. 17 hours. Command had known for 17 hours and done nothing. But this human, this stranger, had defied his own chain of command to, "You're lying. Check the ship's logs yourself. You've already hacked into our data systems anyway. Might as well confirm it." Sarah's blood went cold. "How did you? Your terminal access shows up on our security grid. I approved it." "Why would you approve?" "Because if I were in your position, I'd want to know the truth too." Matthias moved toward the door again. This time Sarah didn't call him back. She waited until his footsteps faded before activating the medical bay's data terminal. It took her 40 minutes to break through the encryption, another 20 to find the mission logs. Then she wished she hadn't looked. The files were there, all of them. Audio recordings of her desperate pleas to command, video footage of Matthias arguing with his superior officers, the court-martial notice pending. The charges: disobeying direct orders, unauthorized use of military assets, creating diplomatic incident with Zarathi government. Sarah scrolled through the disciplinary report. Read the recommended sentence. Dishonorable discharge, possible imprisonment, all because he decided 47 Zarathi soldiers mattered. She found one more file, audio only, Matthias's voice speaking to his executive officer. "I'll take the fall, just make sure she gets medical care. The others too, if any survived. I don't care what it costs me. I'll pay it." The file ended. Sarah sat in the sterile quiet of the medical bay, staring at evidence of something her culture had no framework for. Self-sacrifice. Not for tactical advantage, not for glory or honor, but because someone was dying and he couldn't live with himself if he didn't try. When 2200 arrived, Sarah was waiting. Matthias entered with his usual quiet efficiency. He noted her upright posture, the intensity in her violet eyes. "You're being court-martialed because of me." Not a question. He didn't insult her by denying it. "Yes." "Why?" The word came out broken. "I'm nobody. Just another disposable soldier. My own command proved that. So why throw away your career for—" "My daughter's name is Neve." The non sequitur stopped her cold. Matthias settled into the chair. His voice remained steady, but something in his eyes went distant. Soft. "She's 9 years old. Lives on Earth with my parents while I'm deployed. Every night before I left for this assignment, she asked me the same question. 'Daddy, who are you protecting out there?' And I told her, 'Anyone who needs it.'" He met Sarah's eyes again. "If I left you to die, I couldn't look her in the eye again when I get home. I couldn't tell her I protect people and have her believe it. So yeah, maybe it was selfish. Maybe I did it to stay the man my daughter thinks I am. But I did it, and I'd do it again." Silence filled the medical bay. Sarah felt something crack inside her chest, something she'd built over 25 years of military conditioning, of being taught that sentiment was weakness, that survival was the only virtue. "Your people," her voice came out hoarse, "you don't abandon each other. We try not to, even if it costs you everything, especially then." The crack widened. Sarah's hands shook. On Zareth Prime, she would have hidden them, controlled the weakness, buried it where no one could see. But she was so tired of burying things. "I watched them die," she whispered. "All of them. Caven threw himself between me and a Ravager. He didn't have to. He could have run, but he stayed, and he died, and I lived. And I don't know why. Matthias leaned forward. Do you want to know what I think? Sarah nodded, not trusting her voice. I think Lieutenant Caven made a choice, just like I made a choice. We saw someone worth saving, and we decided that mattered. You didn't ask for it. You don't owe us anything for it. But you're alive because people looked at you and saw value, even when you couldn't see it yourself. A sound escaped Sarah's throat, something between a laugh and a sob. You're very strange humans. Yeah, we get that a lot. For the first time since Meridian fell, Sarah smiled. It felt like treason, like dishonoring the dead by daring to feel anything but grief. But it also felt like breathing after drowning. Matthias stood. Get some rest. You've got a big day tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? I ship out to Earth for my court-martial hearing. Which means this is goodbye. The words hit harder than they should have. Sarah surged to her feet, ignoring the protest of healing tissue. No, Matthias paused. No, I'm coming with you. Sarah, you can't. You saved my life by disobeying orders. Now they're going to punish you for it. That's not justice. That's cowardice wearing a uniform. Her violet eyes blazed. I'm a witness. I have rights under concordance treaty law, and I'm going to testify. It won't change anything. Maybe not. But I won't let you face this alone. You taught me that. Someone shouldn't be alone. Something shifted in Matthias's expression. Surprise, respect, and something else Sarah didn't have a name for yet. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. The Fleet Command Tribunal chamber was built to intimidate. Sarah stood in the observation gallery, her hands gripping the railing. Below, Matthias sat at the defendant's table in full dress uniform. 5 officers formed the tribunal panel. Their expressions promised no mercy. The lead prosecutor, Admiral Keene, spoke with bureaucratic precision. Captain Matthias Kane, you stand accused of disobeying direct orders, unauthorized use of military assets, and creating a diplomatic incident with the Zarathi government. How do you plead guilty on all counts? Matthias's voice carried no regret. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. The tribunal officers exchanged glances. Admiral Keene's expression hardened. Do you have anything to say in your defense? No, sir. Then this tribunal. I do. Every head turned. Sarah descended the gallery stairs, her Zarathi military posture radiating authority despite her borrowed civilian clothes. Admiral Keene's face flushed. This is a closed military hearing. You have no authority. I invoke witness protection rights under Concordance Treaty 47B. Sarah's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. The Admiral sputtered. You're not a Concordance citizen. You have no standing. Then grant me citizenship. Sarah stepped into the center of the chamber. Because Captain Kane saved 4 Zarathi lives at Outpost Meridian, not just mine. And if you punish him for that, your humanity first is a lie. This tribunal will not be lectured by Wakamanamud. Then perhaps it will be interested in evidence. Sarah activated a data chip. Holographic displays materialized above the tribunal floor. Audio files, command transmissions, timestamp after damning timestamp. These are official Zarathi command records, Sarah said. They show that command received distress calls from Meridian 17 hours before Captain Kane's intervention. They show command deliberately delaying response. They show my unit being used as... She paused, let the weight settle. As bait, to test Terran intervention protocols, to see if humans would violate diplomatic boundaries to save alien lives. The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped in shock and anger. Admiral Keene slammed his gavel. Order. How did you obtain classified Zarathi military? I was there, Sarah interrupted. Her voice dropped to something cold, something that carried the weight of 46 dead soldiers. I listened to my command condemn us to death while they ran their experiment. I watched my unit die while they took notes. So yes, Admiral, I stole these files. Court-martial me for it if you want, but first explain to Captain Kane's daughter why her father is being punished for having a conscience when my government has none. Silence fell like a hammer. Admiral Keene looked at the evidence, looked at Matthias, looked at Sarah standing defiant in the center of his tribunal. This changes nothing, he said finally. Captain Kane still violated direct orders. That cannot be excused regardless of... Then what is the point? Matthias's voice, quiet but absolute, cut through the Admiral's speech. What is the point of concordance if we only help people when it's convenient, when it doesn't cost us anything, when the diplomats approve? He stood. I took an oath to protect. Not just humans, not just allies, anyone who needs it. If that oath only applies when it's easy, it's not worth the breath it takes to speak it. Admiral Keen's jaw tightened. Captain, you're not helping your case. I'm not trying to, sir. I'm trying to keep my word to a 9-year-old girl who thinks her father protects people. And I'm trying to honor the sacrifice of Lieutenant Cavan and 45 other Zarathi soldiers who died believing someone would remember they mattered. The Admiral's hand hovered over his gavel. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the tribunal member to Keen's left, an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes, spoke. Admiral, I move for immediate dismissal of all charges. Keen rounded on her. Captain Torres, you can't. I just did. Captain Kane acted in accordance with Concordance founding principles. His intervention saved lives without compromising military security. And frankly, if we punish people for having principles, we don't deserve them serving under our command. 2 other tribunal members nodded agreement. Admiral Keen's face went through several colors. Finally, he slammed the gavel one last time. Charges are dismissed. However, Captain Kane is hereby reassigned to humanitarian relief operations, effective immediately. It was exile wearing a pardon's face. Matthias saluted. Understood, sir. The tribunal adjourned. Sarah found Matthias in the corridor outside. He leaned against the wall, exhaustion finally showing through his military bearing. You shouldn't have done that, he said. You're welcome. Those files, you showed them. They'll declare you a traitor to Zarath Prime. You can never go home. Sarah stepped closer. Close enough to see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes. Close enough to understand why he'd risked everything for strangers. Meridian was my home, she said quietly. It died 19 hours before you arrived. Wherever I go now, it's somewhere new. What will you do, Awayu? That depends. On what? On whether humanitarian relief operations take on alien observers. Matthias straightened, understanding dawned across his scarred features. You want to come? I want to learn. You showed me that one person standing can matter. I want to see if I can be that person too. If you'll teach me. For the first time since Sarah had met him, Matthias Kane smiled. A real smile. One that reached those impossible blue eyes. I think we can arrange that. He extended his hand. Sarah looked at it. On Zarath Prime, touching was reserved for combat or mating. Physical contact outside those contexts marked you as weak. But she wasn't on Zarath Prime anymore. Sarah clasped his hand. His grip was warm, solid, real. Welcome to the valiant Lieutenant Valen. Just Sarah, I'm not part of your military. Yet, she raised an eyebrow. Presumptuous. Optimistic. There's a difference. As they walked through Fleet Command quarters, Sarah felt the weight of 46 ghosts walking with her. Caven and the others? The soldiers' command had abandoned. She couldn't bring them back, couldn't undo their deaths, but she could honor them by becoming something they never had the chance to be. Someone who stood when everyone else walked away. Someone who mattered to someone. The Valiant waited in orbit, Sarah's new home, her new purpose, and beside her the strange scarred human who decided she was worth saving. Matthias Kane didn't know it yet, but he'd just recruited his most dedicated student. Sarah Valen was about to learn everything he could teach. And somewhere on a planet called Earth, a 9-year-old girl named Neve was about to get the letter her father had written before the tribunal. In it, he told her about a brave soldier who'd lost everything but still chose to stand. About someone who taught him that courage looked different on every world. About the alien woman he hoped one day his daughter would meet. The letter ended with a promise. I'm coming home soon, and I'm bringing someone special with me. Someone who reminds me why we do this, why we stand, why one person always matters. Love you forever, Daddy. Neve Kane would read that letter 17 times before sleep found her. And across the void, her father and an alien soldier who'd learned what hope felt like began preparing for their next mission. They had 3 weeks to get ready. 3 weeks to gather supplies, brief the relief team, and make the journey back to Outpost Meridian. The survivors needed help. And for the first time in her life, Sarah Valen knew exactly what help looked like. It looked like one person who refused to leave. 4 weeks had passed since Meridian fell. 2 weeks since the tribunal had absolved Matthias of wrongdoing while exiling him to the edges of military relevance. 2 weeks of preparation, gathering supplies, briefing the relief team. 1 week in transit, watching the stars blur past at faster-than-light speeds, while Sarah learned the names of the crew who would stand with them. Now the transport shuttle descended through Meridian's atmosphere like a falling star. Sarah pressed her palm against the viewport, watching the scarred planet grow larger. Her home, her graveyard, the place where she'd died and been reborn in the same breath. She was going back. Matthias sat across from her in the tactical bay, checking weapon systems with the methodical precision she'd come to recognize. Dr. Aldrich Thorne, the silver-haired surgeon who'd stabilized her wounds during the rescue, reviewed medical supplies with quiet efficiency. 6 Terran Marines occupied the remaining seats, their faces carrying the particular stillnesses of soldiers approaching a combat zone. And 2 Zarathi, defectors like her, warriors who'd heard about Command's betrayal and made their own choice. The shuttle shuddered. Atmospheric entry. Sarah's stomach dropped, but not from the turbulence. "You don't have to do this," Matthias said without looking up from his checklist. "Yes, I do." "Why?" Sarah watched Meridian's twin suns paint the clouds in shades of amber and blood. "Because I need to know." "Know what? If I can be what you are, someone who helps instead of just survives." Now he did look up, those blue eyes that had seen her broken and chose to care anyway. "You already are, Sarah. I killed for 25 years. I don't know if I can build anything." "Then I'll teach you." The shuttle touched down with a shudder of retro thrusters. Matthias stood checking his sidearm. "Welcome back, Lieutenant." Sarah followed him to the ramp. "It's not home anymore." "Then let's make it something better." The ramp descended. Meridian's heat hit like a physical blow. The air tasted of ash and old death. Sarah stepped onto soil that had drunk the blood of her entire unit and felt 46 ghosts rise to meet her. The outpost was gone. Where buildings had stood, only rubble remained. The Valiant's orbital bombardment had saved her life by destroying everything she'd fought to defend. Poetic in its way. Movement drew her eye. Figures emerging from makeshift shelters constructed from debris and salvaged metal. Zarathi civilians, refugees from the mining colonies, 247 souls who'd survived when their defenders hadn't. An elderly female approached. Her violet eyes held the particular hardness that came from watching everything burn. "I am Elder Kess," she said in Zarathi. Her gaze swept over Sarah's borrowed Terran fatigues with undisguised contempt. "You're Lieutenant Valen. You survived. How fortunate." The word landed like an accusation. "Elder Kess," Sarah kept her voice neutral. "We've brought medical supplies, food, water purification equipment. We don't need alien charity. With respect, Elder, your people are dying. Better to die free than live as pets to strangers." Matthias stepped forward. His translator rendered his words in flawless Zarathi. "We're not asking you to be pets. We're asking you to stay alive long enough to rebuild." Kess turned her ancient gaze on him. "You're the human who defied orders. The one who decided our lives mattered enough to risk your career." "Yes, ma'am." "Why, Paul? Because someone was dying. That made it my business." For a long moment, the old Zarathi studied him. Then she spat in the dust at his feet. "Your compassion is an insult. We are Zarathi. We endure. We don't need grandmother, please." A younger voice, a boy perhaps 8 years old, stepped from behind Kess's robes. His thin frame spoke of malnutrition. His eyes held premature knowledge of death. "Taiv," Kess snapped, "return to Uk." "I'm hungry." The boy's voice cracked. "We're all hungry. If the aliens have food, why can't we?" "Because we are not beggars." Kess's hand lashed out, catching the boy across the face. Taiv stumbled, didn't cry. On Zarath Prime, crying was weakness. But Sarah saw his hands shake. Before she could think, she stepped between them. "Elder Kess, your pride won't feed them. It won't heal them, and it won't bring back the ones we lost." "What would you know of lost traitor?" Kess's voice dripped venom. "You wear their clothes, speak their language, stand with them while your own people starve. You're no Zarathi. You're alive." Sarah's voice cut like a blade. "I'm alive because a stranger decided I mattered. And now I'm here to make sure these children live long enough to hate me for it." She turned to Matthias. "Set up the medical tent. Whether they want our help or not, it'll be here when they need it." Matthias nodded. The Marines moved with efficient purpose, unloading supplies. Kess watched with cold fury, but she didn't stop them. Taiv looked at Sarah with something that might have been hope. She turned away before it could take root. Hope was dangerous. Hope made you care. And caring Sarah was learning hurt worse than any wound. The first 10 days passed like water through fingers. Sarah worked herself to exhaustion, hauling supplies through Meridian's brutal heat, erecting shelters from salvaged materials, distributing ration packs that the Zarathi refugees accepted with silent resentment. They looked at her and saw a traitor, a collaborator, someone who'd chosen alien masters over her own kind. She didn't correct them. What could she say that Matthias Kane had shown her more loyalty in 4 weeks than Command had in 25 years? That humanity's supposed weakness had proven stronger than Zarathi's steel. The words would sound like lies, even though they were true. On day 8, Tayev approached her water distribution station. Sarah handed him a canteen without comment. The boy took it, drank deeply, then spat in her face. "Traitor," he whispered. Sarah wiped the spittle away with mechanical calm. "Get in line for medical screening. Dr. Thorne needs to check everyone for infection." "I don't want alien medicine." "Then you'll die of sepsis. Your choice." The boy's violet eyes blazed with hate, pure, uncomplicated. The kind of conviction that came from certainty. Sarah envied him that. She handed him another canteen. "Take this to your grandmother. She's dehydrated." "Why do you care?" "I don't know anymore." The honesty seemed to confuse him more than kindness would have. He took the canteen and fled. Matthias found her that evening sitting on the rubble of what had been the command bunker, the place where she'd made her 7th and final call to command, where they'd denied her even the dignity of last rites. "Rough day," he asked. "A child spat in my face. His grandmother thinks I'm a race traitor, and I'm starting to wonder if they're right." Matthias settled beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth in Meridian's cooling air, far enough to let her choose the distance. "You know what I see when I look at this camp," he said. "Hatred, resentment, people who are still alive. Because you helped carry medical supplies through 100-degree heat. Because you purified water that would have killed them. Because you stood between a boy and his grandmother's anger long enough for Dr. Thorne to treat his infected leg wound. He hates me. He's 8. He doesn't know what he feels. But he's breathing. That matters." Sarah picked up a fragment of metal. Part of her old rifle twisted beyond recognition. "On Zareth Prime we have a saying, the living serve strength, the dead serve memory. I served strength my whole life, Matthias, and it abandoned me to die. Now I don't know what I'm serving." "Maybe that's the point." She looked at him. "What? Maybe you're not supposed to serve anything. Maybe you're supposed to choose what matters. Build it, protect it, even when it's hard. And what if I choose wrong? Then you'll have chosen. That's more than most people manage." Sarah studied his scarred face in the dying light. "Is that what you did when you came for us?" "Yeah." "Do you regret it?" "Not for a second." Something shifted in her chest, something that felt dangerously like hope. "Teach me," she said quietly. "Teach me how to do this, how to care without breaking." Matthias smiled. That small, sad smile she'd learned meant he was remembering pain. "I'll teach you, but Sarah, caring always breaks you a little. That's how you know it's real." The teaching began the next morning. Dr. Thorne's medical tent became Sarah's classroom. Matthias showed her how to clean wounds without causing unnecessary pain, how to apply dermal regenerators to maximize healing, how to recognize infection before it turns septic, the medicine of saving instead of killing. Her hands, trained for 25 years to destroy, learned a different vocabulary. "Gentle," Matthias corrected when she pressed too hard on a bandage. "You're not restraining an enemy, you're helping someone heal." Sarah adjusted her grip. The elderly Zarathi female beneath her hands flinched anyway. "I don't want her touching me," the woman rasped in Zarathi. Matthias didn't understand the words, but he understood tone. He placed his hand over Sarah's, steadying, supporting. "Tell her she's safe," he said. Sarah translated. The woman's eyes flickered with distrust. "Safe with a traitor and aliens." "Yes," Sarah said simply. "Safe with us, because unlike command, we came back." The woman had no answer for that. Sarah finished the bandaging. The woman left without thanks, but she left breathing easier. Small victories. Matthias called them that. Sarah called them exhausting. But she kept learning. On day 12, they brought her an elderly Zarathi woman. Ancient, thin as drought-killed grass, dying from organ failure that no regenerator could fix. "There's nothing we can do," Dr. Thorne said quietly to Sarah and Matthias. "Make her comfortable. That's all we have left." Sarah stared at the failing woman. On Zareth Prime, they would have given her a blade in privacy, a warrior's end, quick, efficient, honorable. But Matthias knelt beside the cot and took the woman's hand. "You're not alone," he said through the translator. "We're here." The woman's milky eyes focused on him with effort. "You're human." "Yes, ma'am." "Why do you care if I die?" "Because you're dying. That makes you someone who needs comfort." "I'm no one, just an old miner's widow. No value, no purpose." Matthias's voice remained steady. "You have value to me. Right now, right here. You matter." The woman stared at him. Then she turned her ancient gaze to Sarah. You, Zarathi girl, come here. Sarah approached. The woman's hand, paper thin and trembling, reached out. Will you, will you hold my hand? I've never been held. Not in 80 years. Is this what warmth feels like? Sarah's breath caught. On Zarath Prime, physical contact outside combat or reproduction was forbidden. Weakness, sentiment, everything her culture had taught her to despise. But this dying woman just wanted to know what warmth felt like. Sarah took her hand. The woman's grip was weak, fragile, but her eyes brightened. Thank you, she whispered, for making the end less cold. She died 3 minutes later. Sarah sat holding the hand of a stranger for long minutes after the life left her. Matthias didn't interrupt, didn't rush her, just knelt on the other side of the cot bearing witness. When Sarah finally stood, her face was wet. I don't understand, she said. We didn't save her. We didn't fix anything. She died anyway. But she didn't die alone. That mattered to her. That's worth something. Is making someone's death less terrible really enough? Matthias stood. His blue eyes held depths she was only beginning to fathom. Sometimes that's all we can do. Sometimes bearing witness to someone's pain is the only kindness left. And yeah, Sarah, that's enough. Because she deserved to be seen. To matter, even at the end. Sarah looked at her hands, the same hands that had killed, that had held a rifle while her unit died, that had just offered warmth to a dying stranger. It hurts, she whispered. I know. Does it get easier? No, but you get stronger, strong enough to carry it. Sarah wiped her eyes. On Zarath Prime, showing tears would have been unthinkable, but she wasn't on Zarath Prime anymore. And maybe, just maybe, tears were their own kind of strength. Day 14 found Sarah and Matthias on night watch together. Meridian's twin moons painted the ruins in silver and shadow. Somewhere in the distance, scavengers called to each other, the sound of a world healing around its wounds. They'd established a routine over the past 2 weeks. Professional, focused on the work. But tonight felt different. The air held a weight that had nothing to do with humidity. Can't sleep, Matthias asked without turning from his scanner. Thinking. Dangerous habit. Sarah settled beside him on the observation post they'd constructed from debris. Tell me about your wife. Matthias went still, the kind of stillness that meant old pain rising to the surface. Why? Because you mentioned your daughter, but you never talk about her mother, and I want to understand you. For a long moment, only the wind answered. Then Matthias spoke. His voice carried the weight of grief worn smooth by time. Her name was Lysa. We met at university. She was studying xenobiology. I was studying how to shoot things. We shouldn't have worked, but we did. He pulled out a small data chip, projected a hologram. A woman appeared. Dark hair, warm smile, eyes that laughed. She died 3 years ago, autoimmune disorder. Her body decided her organs were foreign invaders and attacked them. We tried everything, every treatment, every experimental protocol. Nothing worked. Sarah watched the hologram flicker. You weren't there. No, I was deployed, deep space patrol. By the time they got the emergency message to me, by the time I made it back, his voice cracked. She'd been gone for 6 days. Nave was 6 years old. She watched her mother die, and I wasn't there to hold either of them. I'm sorry. I swore after that I'd never let duty take me from family again. Never let the mission matter more than the people waiting for me. He laughed bitter. And here I am, light years from my daughter, choosing to stand in the ruins of someone else's war. Why? Matthias turned to her. His eyes held something raw, something true. Because I met you, because you reminded me that duty and love are not opposites. They're the same thing. Taking care of people, whoever they are, wherever they need it. Lysa understood that. She married a Marine knowing I'd always run toward the fire. He touched the hologram gently. And Neve deserves to grow up in a galaxy where people run toward the fire instead of away from it, where a stranger's life matters as much as a neighbor's. I can't give her a world without pain. But maybe I can give her a world with people who care about that pain. Sarah felt tears tracking down her face again. She's lucky, your daughter, to have a father who believes that. She'd like you, I think. Neve asks about you in every message. Wants to know everything about Zarathi culture. Having you in her life would mean the world to her. I'm not sure I'd qualify as friend material. I'm still figuring out how to not be a soldier. You held a dying woman's hand 2 days ago, made her last moments warmer. That's not a soldier, Sarah. That's someone learning to be human, in the best sense of the word. I'm not human. Matthias smiled, sad and gentle and full of something that made Sarah's chest ache. Maybe not in biology, but in the ways that matter. You're getting there. The words hung in the air between them. Sarah felt the weight of them, the invitation hidden in the simplicity. On Zarath, she said quietly, we don't have love. We have genetic compatibility, reproductive contracts, arrangements for optimal offspring. But we don't have this. This choosing someone because they make the darkness less dark. Caring about someone's pain more than your own comfort. That's alien to me. More alien than any biology. Matthias reached out, slow, giving her time to refuse. His hand cupped her cheek, warm, rough with calluses. Real. What do you feel right now? He asked. Terrified. Of what? That I'll break if I let myself want this. Want you. Then we'll break together. His lips found hers, gentle, careful, like he was learning her the way she'd learned to bandage wounds, with patience, with care. Sarah had kissed before. Quick mechanical exchanges meant for pleasure or political advantage. Biology without emotion. This was different, and this was choosing to be vulnerable with someone who could hurt you, and trusting they wouldn't. When they parted, Sarah's hands were shaking. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Neither do I, not anymore. But maybe we figure it out together. What if I'm broken? What if Zarath broke me so badly I can't? Then you'll be broken. And I'll care about you anyway. That's how this works. Sarah laughed. The sound came out wet with tears and wonder. You're ridiculous. Yeah, I really am. She kissed him again. Harder this time. Less careful. More certain. They stayed on that watch post until Meridian's twin moons began their descent. Learning each other, building something fragile and necessary from the ruins of who they'd been. And somewhere in the camp below, Tayev watched the alien woman and the human soldier sitting close together. He didn't understand it yet. But 40 years from now, when he led the first joint Zarathi Terran colony, he would remember this moment. Would remember that love looked like two people choosing each other across an impossible divide. Day 15 brought the warning. Sarah was teaching a group of young Zarathi basic first aid when her combat instincts screamed alert. She'd spent 25 years as a scout. Her body recognized danger before her mind processed it. Matthias, she said quietly, we have incoming. He materialized beside her hand already on his sidearm. Where? High orbit, 3 signatures. Ravager scouts if I'm reading the emissions right. Dr. Thorne activated a scanner. His face went pale. She's right, and they're not alone. There's a larger signature behind them. Hive ship class. The words dropped like stones into still water. Matthias's jaw tightened. How long? 4 days. Maybe 5. Get me fleet command. The comm channel opened. Static, then a bureaucrat's voice. This is Fleet Logistics. State your. This is Captain Kane Humanitarian Relief Team, Meridian 7. We have Ravager Hive ship inbound. Request immediate civilian evacuation. 247 souls. We need transport now. A pause. Keyboard sounds. Captain Kane, Meridian is Zarathi sovereign territory. We cannot authorize. These are civilians, women, children. They'll be slaughtered. Not our jurisdiction, Captain. Zarathi Command has been notified. They'll handle evacuation protocols. Sarah's blood went cold. She grabbed the comm from Matthias. This is Lieutenant Sarah Valen, formerly Zarathi Defense Forces. Command won't evacuate. They've already written these people off. We need Terran support. Negative, Lieutenant. We have standing orders not to intervene in Zarathi internal. Sarah crushed the comm unit. Silence fell over the medical tent. So, Dr. Thorne said quietly, we're on our own. Matthias looked at the refugees. At the children playing in the dust. At Tayev, who'd stopped hating Sarah long enough to let her teach him how to bandage wounds. Then we hold. Matt, Dr. Thorne said carefully, we have 8 Marines, 40 able-bodied Zarathi, maybe 50 civilians who could hold a weapon if we taught them. Against a hive ship, that's thousands of Ravagers. It's suicide. You're right, it is. Matthias's voice held no fear, only certainty. So anyone who wants to leave, leave now. I'll order the shuttle back. No judgment, no shame. But I'm staying. The Marines exchanged glances. Then one by one they stood. Where you go, Captain, we go. The 2 Zarathi defectors nodded agreement. Dr. Thorne sighed. Well, always wanted to go out doing something meaningful. This qualifies. Sarah stood. I'll contact Elder Kess. If we're making a stand, we need everyone who can fight. Matthias caught her hand. Sarah, you don't have to stay. This isn't your fight anymore. You're wrong. She met his eyes. This is exactly my fight. These are my people abandoned by our command, just like I was, just like my unit was. And you taught me that we don't leave people to die alone. I also taught you that caring breaks you. Then let it break me, but I break standing. Something fierce and proud blazed in Matthias's expression. Okay, let's teach these people how to survive. 4 days of preparation felt like 4 hours. Matthias turned the ruins into a fortress, taught civilians to operate mining equipment as weapons, showed children where to hide when the shooting started. Sarah drilled the Zarathi refugees in squad tactics. Most had never held a weapon. She made them into something that resembled soldiers, not professionals, but desperate, and desperation had its own effectiveness. Elder Kess watched from her shelter, silent, judging. On day 18, she approached Sarah. You came back, the old Zarathi said. Yes. Command didn't. No. They declared you Vraxketh, soulless, exiled. You have no homeworld, no family, no place among our people. Sarah didn't flinch. I know. And yet you stay. You teach our children to fight. You stand with aliens to defend people who hate you. Why? Sarah met those ancient violet eyes. Because someone has to. And I'm tired of watching people die because someone decided they weren't worth saving. For a long moment, Kess studied her. Then she did something Sarah had never seen a Zarathi elder do. She smiled. Perhaps Command was right to fear you, Sarah Valen. You're dangerous, not because you fight, but because you care. And that's contagious. Is that your way of saying thank you? It's my way of saying fight well. And if we die knowing someone stood with us. The old woman walked away. Tayev appeared at Sarah's elbow. The boy who'd spat in her face now watched her with something approaching awe. Will we win? He asked. I don't know, but we'll fight, yes. Good. He held out a small hand. Can you teach me more about helping people like you do? Sarah took his hand, felt the weight of trust, of hope, of everything she'd never learned on Zarath Prime. Yeah, kid, I can teach you. That night, Matthias found her in the command post they'd established. You should see this, he said. He activated a hologram. Neve's face appeared, 9 years old, gap-toothed smile, eyes full of wonder. Hi, Daddy, I made you something. She held up a drawing. Crude, childish, perfect. It showed 3 figures holding hands, a tall human male, a smaller human female, and between them a figure with violet eyes and green-tinged skin. This is you and me and him and the alien lady you told me about, the brave soldier. I drew us as a family because Grandpa says family is people who take care of each other even when it's hard. Is that right? Neve's voice carried pure innocence, pure hope. I hope you bring her home to meet me, Daddy. I want to learn about her world and maybe teach her about ours. I love you. Come home safe. The hologram ended. Sarah stood frozen, staring at that crude drawing, at the representation of something she'd never had, family. She doesn't even know me, Sarah whispered. She knows you matter to me. That's enough for her. Matthias, if we don't survive this, then Neve will grow up knowing her father died protecting people, that he stood with a woman who taught him courage looks different on every world. And that's a legacy I can live with, or die with. Sarah turned to him, this impossible human who decided she was worth saving, who taught her that sentiment wasn't weakness, that caring was its own kind of strength. I love you, she said. The words felt foreign, dangerous, true. I don't know how it happened. I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I love you, and I want to meet Neve. I want to see if I can be part of that family she drew. Matthias pulled her close. His arms were warm, solid, real. Then we survive. We hold the line. We save these people, and we go home together. Promise? I promise to try. That's all I've got. Sarah kissed him, hard, desperate, like she could pour 25 years of emotional starvation into one moment of connection. When they parted, alarms were screaming. The Ravagers had arrived early. Dr. Thorne burst into the command post. They're landing multiple dropships north perimeter. Matthias grabbed his rifle. Get the civilians to the shelter. All Marines to defensive positions. Sarah, you're with me on the line. Where else would I be? They ran together into the gathering darkness. Behind them, 247 refugees huddled in reinforced shelters. Children, elderly, wounded. People who Command had abandoned. People who 8 Terran Marines, 2 Zarathi defectors, 40 desperate civilians, and 1 former lieutenant were about to defend with their lives. The Ravagers came like a living nightmare. Thousands of them, mandibles clicking, talons gleaming, eyes reflecting Meridian's twin moons in 1,000 points of hungry light. Matthias took position on the front line, Sarah beside him, Dr. Thorne manning a makeshift medical station behind the barricades. Remember, Matthias called to the defenders, we hold until everyone gets out, no matter what. We don't abandon people. That's who we are. Sarah raised her rifle. Beside her, Taev, too young, too small, too brave, clutched a mining tool converted into a weapon. I'm scared, the boy whispered. Me too, Sarah said, but we're scared together. That makes it easier. The Ravagers charged, and on the front line of an impossible defense, Sarah Vallon learned the final lesson Matthias Kane had to teach. Sometimes love meant standing in the path of overwhelming darkness, not because you could win, but because someone behind you deserved the chance to survive. The battle began. The first wave hit like a tsunami of chitin and rage. Sarah's rifle bucked against her shoulder. One shot, one Ravager fell, mandibles still clicking in death throes. She didn't pause to watch it die. There were always more. Beside her, Matthias fired with mechanical precision. Each shot a small defiance against impossible odds. Behind them, 40 Zarathi civilians who'd never held weapons before 3 weeks ago fought with the desperation of parents for protecting children. The mining charges detonated in sequence. Thunder rolled across Meridian's scarred earth. Ravager bodies flew skyward, torn apart by humanity's gift for creative destruction. The wave faltered for exactly 17 seconds. Then the second wave came. Fall back to secondary positions. Matthias's voice cut through the chaos. Control retreat. Cover each other. The defenders moved, not smoothly, not professionally, but together, covering blind spots, pulling wounded to safety, doing what Zarathi military doctrine had never taught them, caring about the soldier beside you more than tactical advantage. Taev stumbled. His makeshift weapon, a mining laser jury-rigged for combat, clattered from his small hands. A Ravager loomed over him, talons raised for the killing strike. Sarah moved without thought. Her blade found the creature's throat. Green ichor sprayed across her face. She grabbed Taev, hauled him behind the barricade. Stay down. I dropped my weapon. I'm sorry. You're alive. That's what matters. Now stay behind cover until... The transmission cut through every comm unit simultaneously. Zarathi Command, broadcasting on all frequencies. The voice carried bureaucratic precision and calculated cruelty. This is Zarathi Supreme Command. We issue formal declaration. Sarah Vallon, formerly Lieutenant Zarathi Defense Forces, is hereby declared Vraxketh, soulless, without honor, without homeworld. Her name is stricken from all records. Her family line is dissolved. She is exile. Ghost. Nothing. The words hit harder than any Ravager talon. Vraxketh, the ultimate punishment. Worse than death. To be declared soulless meant you never existed. Your ancestors disowned you retroactively. Your descendants, if you had any, would be forbidden from speaking your name. Cultural annihilation. The broadcast continued. Further's declaration, any Zarathi citizen providing aid to the Vraxketh Sarah Valinshin will be considered collaborators with alien forces. All assets on Meridian are considered enemy combatants. No support will be provided, no evacuation authorized. You stand with ghosts, deep away with ghosts. Silence fell across the battlefield. Even the Ravagers seemed to pause as if recognizing the weight of what had been spoken. Elder Kess's voice crackled over the local comm. They abandoned us, just like they abandoned you at the beginning. We're all ghosts now, Sarah Vallon. Sarah's hands tightened on her rifle. 25 years of service, 25 years of following orders, bleeding for a government that calculated her worth in fuel costs and resource allocation. And now they declared she'd never existed at all. Matthias touched her shoulder. Sarah, she activated her own comm, broadcast on the same frequency Command had used. This is Sarah Vallon. Yes, Command. I stand with aliens. I stand with humans who value life over doctrine. I stand with people who came back when you ran. You call me Vraxketh good, because I'd rather be soulless than serve cowards who abandon their own. She looked at the refugees around her, at Taev, at Elder Kess, at the 2 Zarathi defectors who'd chosen conscience over command. Meridian is my home now. These people are my family. Not because of blood, not because of species, but because they're here. They're fighting. They matter. Sarah's voice hardened. So come take me, Command. Send your perfect soldiers. Your obedient drones. I'll be right here. Standing with the people you left to die. She cut the transmission. Around her, the Zarathi refugees were standing. Really standing, not cowering, not calculating survival odds. Standing with her. Elder Kess's weathered voice carried across the barricades. Well said, Vraxketh. Now let's show command what Ghost can do. The Ravagers charged again. This time the defenders met them, screaming defiance. Hour 4 of the siege. Sarah's ammunition counter read 7 rounds. 7 bullets between her and hand-to-hand combat with creatures designed for close-quarters slaughter. The command post, a reinforced bunker constructed from debris, held 6 people. Matthias, Dr. Thorne, 2 Marines whose names Sarah had memorized because remembering the living mattered, and Sarah herself. Outside, the defensive perimeter had collapsed to a circle 50 meters across. 47 able bodies remained from the original fighting force. Ammunition critical. Medical supplies exhausted. Hope running on fumes and stubborn refusal to quit. Dr. Thorne's scanner painted a grim picture on the tactical display. The hive ship, he said. His voice carried the particular exhaustion that came from stitching torn bodies for 4 straight hours. It's stationary in low orbit, feeding reinforcements to the surface. How many total? Matthias asked. Thermal signatures suggest 3,000 plus. They're rotating waves. Fresh troops every hour while we're burning out. Matthias studied the display with the focus Sarah had learned meant he was calculating terrible mathematics. How long could exhausted defenders hold against an endless enemy? The answer sat unspoken between them. There's a way, he said finally. Everyone turned. The Valiant has orbital strike capability. Plasma lance. It could crack that hive ship like an egg. But it needs a target lock from the ground. Dr. Thorne's face went pale. Matt, the targeting designator requires line of sight. You'd have to be inside the ship's shields to paint it properly. I know. The shields are designed to block escape pods, debris, anything trying to leave once the strike starts. Whoever goes in doesn't come out. I know. Sarah's blood turned to ice. No. Matthias met her eyes. It's the only way to stop the reinforcements. Without that ship, we can hold. Maybe even win. With it feeding fresh troops, we're dead in another hour. All of us. Then we die together. Sarah. No, her voice cracked. You don't get to do this. You don't get to sacrifice yourself after teaching me that every life matters. That includes yours. It includes the 247 people in those shelters more. Matthias, please. He pulled out a small data chip, pressed it into her hands. His fingers were warm, solid, real. The same hands that had steadied her when she wanted to die, that had taught her gentleness could be strength. Letter for Niv, he said quietly. I wrote it before the tribunal, just in case. Tell her I loved her. Tell her she made me want to be worthy of her faith, and tell her about you, about the brave soldier who taught me that courage looks different on every world. You'll tell her yourself, we'll find another way. There is no other way. His hands cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears she didn't remember shedding. I'm sorry, I promised we'd survive together. I'm breaking that promise. Then I'm coming with you. No, yes. If you die, I die. That's how this works now. Something fierce blazed in Matthias's expression. Pride and sorrow and love all tangled together. Okay, he said. Okay, we do this together. Dr. Thorne handed them the targeting designator, a small device, innocent-looking, heavy with death. 90 seconds of continuous line of sight once you activate it, the doctor said. His voice was professionally calm. His hands shook. The Valiant will fire the moment lock is confirmed. You'll have maybe 20 seconds after launch to clear the blast radius. Everyone knew 20 seconds wasn't enough. Matthias checked his sidearm. Sarah, you ready? She nodded, couldn't speak past the tightness in her throat. They moved toward the transport that would carry them to their deaths. Sarah activated the medical station's drug dispenser while Matthias's back was turned, filled a small injector with sedative, the same dosage Dr. Thorne used for battlefield triage, enough to drop a full-grown human for 6 hours. At the transport's ramp, Matthias turned. Whatever happens, I want you to know. Sarah kissed him, hard, desperate, pouring everything she couldn't say into that one point of contact. When they parted, she pressed against him, as if memorizing the feel of his body against hers. I love you, she whispered into his ear. That's why I can't let you die for me again. She triggered the injector against his neck. Matthias's eyes went wide. Sarah, what did you... His knees buckled. She caught him, eased him down. "Forgive me," she said, "but Neve needs her father, and I need to know you're alive when this is over." "Don't, you promised?" "I lied. You taught me how." His eyes were already closing, fighting the sedative, losing. "Tell Neve," Sarah's voice broke. "Tell her I would have loved to meet her. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her, tell her to take care of her ridiculous father." Matthias tried to speak, failed. Darkness took him. Sarah stood, grabbed the targeting designator, turned to Dr. Thorne. "When he wakes up, tell him I kept my promise. I did break, but I broke standing." Then she ran for the transport before courage could fail her. The hive ship loomed like a moon made of nightmares. Sarah piloted the stolen transport with combat instincts honed over 25 years. The Ravager's security protocols were good, but Zarathi military training had taught her 17 ways to breach supposedly impenetrable defenses. She used all of them. The transport's hull screamed as she forced it through the hive ship's shield harmonics. Alarms shrieked. Ravager warriors swarmed toward her landing point. Sarah kicked open the ramp rifle in one hand, targeting designator in the other. Killed the first 3 Ravagers before they registered her presence. The next 5 died before they could sound alarm. She moved through the hive ship like death in borrowed fatigues. Every corner was a kill zone. Every corridor a gauntlet. But Zarathi scouts were trained to infiltrate, to navigate hostile territory, to survive when survival seemed impossible. Sarah had spent a lifetime learning this particular dance, just never thought she'd dance it alone. Matthias's voice echoed in her memory. "You're not alone, not anymore." But she was, by choice, because some things mattered more than promises. Like making sure the man she loved went home to his daughter. The Queen's chamber sat at the hive ship's heart. Sarah felt it before she saw it. A vast space, cathedral-sized, organic architecture that looked grown rather than built. And in the center, the Ravager Queen. She was massive, 3 times the size of her warriors. Her carapace shimmered with colors that hurt to look at directly. Her eyes compound and ancient tracked Sarah with terrifying intelligence. "Zarathi scout," the Queen said. Sarah froze. Ravagers didn't speak. Military briefings had always classified them as advanced insects. Animal cunning, not sapience. The briefings were wrong. "You understand me?" Sarah kept her rifle trained on the Queen's head. Knew it was pointless. The creature could kill her before neural impulse reached trigger finger. "We understand many things, including futility, yet you came anyway. Alone, why?" "To stop you from killing people I care about. The humans, they're not your species. Family isn't blood, it's choice. I choose them." The Queen's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter or sorrow. "Choice, yes. I remember choice." The massive creature settled onto her haunches. "You remind me of my daughter. Stubborn, foolish, brave." Sarah's grip on the rifle wavered. "What happened to her?" "Humans killed her 3 years ago. Your Captain Kane's unit, in fact. The Battle of Regulus Station. We were defending our breeding grounds. They thought we were aggressors, shot first, asked questions after." The words landed like physical blows. Matthias had never mentioned Regulus Station, never mentioned killing Ravager young. "My daughter died protecting her clutchmates," the Queen continued. "The humans called it self-defense. Perhaps it was. Perhaps we're all just defending what we love and calling it righteousness." "Then you know," Sarah said quietly, "what it's like to lose someone. I know that grief is universal, and that I've seen enough death to last 1,000 generations." Sarah activated the targeting designator. Red light painted the chamber. The weapon was locked on the Queen's position. "Then let's end this. No more death, no more grief, just silence. You'll die if you stay. The orbital strike will incinerate everything within half a kilometer." "I know. For people who abandoned you, who declared you soulless. No, for people who chose me when I had nothing. For a human who taught me that one person standing matters. For his daughter who drew a picture of us as a family even though she's never met me." The Queen's enormous eyes studied her. "You love him, the human captain." "Yes." "And he loves you." "Yes." "Then you're a fool to die here. Love is rare, precious, and you throw it away for strangers." "They're not strangers, not anymore." Silence stretched between warrior and Queen, between 2 beings who'd seen too much death, caused too much death, and were so tired of the wait. 90 seconds, the Queen said. "That's how long you must hold the designator steady. You won't make it to safety in time." "I know." The targeting lock confirmed. Somewhere in orbit, the Valiant's plasma lance was charging. 60 seconds to full power, 90 seconds to firing solution, 120 seconds until everything in this chamber ceased to exist. The Queen moved. Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger, but the massive Ravager didn't attack. She reached out with one enormous talon and gently, impossibly gently pushed Sarah's rifle aside. "Go," the Queen said. "I'll hold the designator." Sarah's world stopped. "What?" "I said go. I'm old. I've sent 1,000 warriors to die for my choices. Let me die for one good choice, one that might end this cycle." "I don't understand." "My daughter believed there could be peace between our species. She died believing it. Maybe she was right. Maybe one act of mercy can stop endless war." The Queen took the designator from Sarah's trembling hands. "Maybe if I save you, that human captain won't have to destroy another mother's daughter. Maybe that's worth one old queen's life." Tears blurred Sarah's vision. "Why? Because I've seen enough death, and you remind me that some things are worth living for." The Queen's mandibles clicked softly. "Now run, brave fool. Run to your love. Tell him forgiveness is possible. Tell him some wars can end." Sarah ran. Behind her, the Ravager Queen held the targeting designator steady, counted down to her own death, and thought of her daughter, her beautiful, foolish, brave daughter who'd believed in peace. Maybe she'd been right all along. The orbital strike launched. Sarah was 30 meters from the transport when the world became fire. Matthias woke to Dr. Thorne's grim face. "Where is she?" No preamble, no confusion, just absolute certainty that Sarah had done something catastrophic. "Gone. Took the transport 2 hours ago. Matt, I'm sorry she—" Matthias was moving before the doctor finished speaking. Out of the command post, into the aftermath of battle. The Ravager waves had stopped. Bodies littered the ground. But the living outnumbered the dead. They'd held, because Sarah had cut off the reinforcements. "The strike." Matthias grabbed the nearest Marine. "Did it hit? Is she—" "Impact confirmed. Hive ship destroyed. But Captain, there's no way anyone inside survived. The blast radius—" Matthias ran. The transport's return beacon painted a location on his tactical display. 1 kilometer north. He covered the distance in minutes that felt like hours. His chest burned, his vision narrowed. The world reduced to one single truth. She couldn't be dead. Not after everything. Not after she'd finally learned to hope. The crash site was a crater. The transport had augured into Meridian's surface at terminal velocity. Metal twisted beyond recognition. Fire still burning in places. The kind of impact that left no survivors. Matthias fell to his knees. "No," he whispered, then louder. "No, no." He tore into the wreckage with bare hands, ignoring the heat, ignoring the jagged metal that opened his palms, digging like a man possessed. Because she'd promised. Promised to break standing. Promised to movement. Under a section of hull plating. Weak. Probably just settling debris. But Matthias grabbed it anyway. Hauled with strength born of desperation. The plating shifted. Sarah lay underneath. Battered. Burned. But breathing. Her violet eyes cracked open. Focused on his face with effort. "You promised," Matthias said. His voice cracked. "You promised you'd stay." Lied. The word came out as a wheeze. "Learned from the best." He pulled her free, cradled her against his chest, felt her heartbeat against his own. Alive. Impossibly alive. "Don't ever do that again." "No promises." Matthias laughed. The sound came out half sob. "You're impossible. You love impossible." "Yeah, I really do." Dr. Thorne arrived with medical team. Started emergency treatment. Dermal regenerators working overtime. Sarah would survive. The injuries were bad, but survivable. She'd made it out with seconds to spare. "The Queen," Sarah whispered as the medics worked. "She saved me. Let me go." Held the designator herself. Matthias stared at her, processing. The Ravager Queen sacrificed herself. Said she was tired of death. Wanted one choice that mattered. Wanted to end the cycle. Somewhere in the rubble of Meridian, surrounded by ghosts and refugees and the wreckage of impossible choices, Matthias Kane held an alien soldier who'd taught him that courage wore 1,000 faces. And above them, the stars bore witness to something rare. 2 species, 2 warriors choosing mercy over vengeance. Choosing to build instead of destroy. "We did it," Sarah said. "Saved them all." Matthias looked at the refugees emerging from shelters. At Tayev alive and whole. At Elder Kess nodding respect. At 247 souls who'd survived because people stood. Yeah, he said softly. We did. 6 months later, Earth smelled like rain and growing things. Sarah stood in the backyard of Matthias's home, their home now watching Neve practice the combat forms she'd taught her. The girl moved with natural grace, 9 years old and already showing the focus of a warrior. But different from Zarathi training, because between each form, Neve laughed. On Zarath Prime, laughter during training meant weakness. Here it meant joy, the simple pleasure of movement, of learning, of being alive. Like this, Neve executed a strike sequence. Perfect form. Exactly like that. You're a natural. Dad says I get it from him. Your father thinks he's better at hand-to-hand than he is. Matthias's voice came from the porch. I heard that. Sarah turned, found him watching them with that expression she'd learned meant contentment, peace, home. He'd retired from active service after Meridian. Took a teaching position at the academy instead. Training the next generation of Marines, passing on lessons learned in blood and fire. Sarah had joined him there, first as guest instructor, then after Terran Fleet offered her citizenship and commission as permanent faculty. Lieutenant Sarah Vallon, Concordance Armed Forces, teaching young humans that strength and compassion weren't opposites. There's someone here to see us, Matthias said. A woman in Fleet Admiral insignia stepped into the yard. Sarah recognized her from briefing zones. Admiral Sarah Okoro, head of Concordance Operations. Lieutenant Valen, Captain Kane. The Admiral's voice carried authority and respect in equal measure. I won't waste your time with pleasantries. I'm here with an offer. She activated a holographic display, official documents, citizenship papers already filed, military commission active, and something else. You've been recommended for command of the new Humanitarian Intervention Unit. Fast response. Authorized to cross borders when civilian lives are at stake. No more waiting for diplomatic approval while people die. Sarah looked at Matthias, saw the question in his eyes. It's because of what you did at Meridian, Admiral Okoro continued. You proved that sometimes rules need breaking, that conscience matters more than protocol. We're making that official doctrine, and we want you leading it. What about my teaching position? Matthias asked. You'd keep it. This would be reserve status, activated when needed. Otherwise, you stay here, raise your daughter, live your life. But when the call comes, we answer, Sarah finished. Together. Together, the Admiral confirmed. Neve tugged Sarah's sleeve. Does this mean you'll be saving people like you and Dad saved each other? Sarah knelt to Neve's level. This child who'd drawn a picture of them as family before they'd ever met, who'd accepted an alien soldier into her home with nothing but curiosity and kindness. Yes, Sarah said. Saving people. That's what we do. Good, because people should help each other, even when it's hard. Words of wisdom from a 9-year-old who'd somehow understood what took Sarah 25 years to learn. We'll need time to discuss, Matthias said to the Admiral. Of course, but there's one more thing. Okoro's expression shifted, became carefully neutral. We received a transmission this morning from Zarath Prime. Ice flooded Sarah's veins. What kind of transmission? Distress call. Ravager forces have invaded their core systems. Multiple colonies under siege. Military losses catastrophic. The Admiral paused. They're requesting concordance aid. Silence fell across the yard. Zarath Prime. The government that had abandoned Sarah to die. That had declared her Vraxketh, soulless, exiled from her own species. Now they wanted help. Do they know they're asking for help from the woman they exiled? Sarah's voice came out flat, controlled, hiding the rage beneath. They know. Specifically requested you and Captain Kane by name. Said if anyone would come despite their betrayal, it would be the soldier who stood at Meridian when everyone else ran. Neve looked up at Sarah with those innocent eyes. Are you going to help them even after they were mean to you? Out of the mouths of children came impossible questions. Sarah could refuse. Walk away, let Zarath Prime burn the way they'd let Meridian burn. Justice, symmetry, the universe balancing its scales. But Matthias had taught her a different math. That's what family does, Sarah said quietly. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. She looked at Matthias, saw understanding in his scarred face, saw pride, saw love. We're going, he said, not a question. We're going, she confirmed. Admiral Okoro allowed herself a small smile. I'll have the Valiant ready within 48 hours. Captain Torres requested to command personally. Said she owes you both. The Admiral left. Neve hugged Sarah's legs. You're brave, both of you. But come back okay, I want to learn more combat forms. And Dad promised to teach me how to make his special pasta. We'll come back, Matthias promised. Always. That night after Neve was asleep, Sarah stood on the porch watching Earth's single moon rise. Matthias joined her, wrapped his arms around her from behind. They stood like that, two warriors learning how to be something other than soldiers. You know this might be a trap, he said. Zareth Command could be using the Ravagers as excuse to what they already declared me dead to them. What worse thing could they do? Kill you for real this time. Then they try, and they fail. Because I'm not alone anymore. Sarah turned in his arms. I have you. I have Neve. I have a purpose. They can't take that away. Sarah Vale, an optimist. Never thought I'd see the day. You broke me, Matthias Kane. Taught me to care. This is your fault. Best decision I ever made. They kissed, gentle, sweet. The kind of kiss that promised tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Above them, stars wheeled in their ancient dance. Somewhere among those stars, Zarath Prime burned. Millions of lives hanging in balance. People who'd shown Sarah nothing but contempt. People she was going to save anyway. Because Matthias had taught her that one person standing mattered. And the Ravager Queen had shown her that mercy could end cycles of violence. And Neve had reminded her that helping people was what you did. Even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. 48 hours later, the Valiant departed Earth orbit. Captain Torres at the helm, Matthias as tactical officer. Sarah as ground operations commander. 120 Marines, 30 Zarathi volunteers who'd defected after Meridian. And one message to Zareth Command. This is Lieutenant Sarah Valen of the Concordance Humanitarian Intervention Unit. You declared me Vraxketh, soulless, but I learned from humans that souls aren't given by governments. They're built by choices, and I choose to come. Not because I forgive you, but because your people deserve better than their command. The message ended with coordinates, landing zones, tactical recommendations, everything Zareth Command would need to coordinate with their Vraxketh ghost. The response came 6 hours later. Lieutenant Valen, this is Supreme Commander Koresh. We understand the impossibility of what we ask, the magnitude of our betrayal, but our people are dying, and you're the only one who answered. A pause, then quieter. Thank you for being better than we deserved. Sarah stood on the Valiant's observation deck watching the stars blur into hyperspace. Matthias appeared beside her, always beside her. Having second thoughts, he asked, No, but ask me again after we see what's left of my homeworld. It won't be easy. Nothing worth doing is. He took her hand, laced their fingers together. Human and Zarathi, two species, two warriors, two people who'd learned that family was built not born. Together, he asked. Always. The Valiant jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, Earth held a 9-year-old girl who drew pictures of impossible families and believed in them anyway. Ahead of them, Zarath Prime burned, waiting for the woman they'd declared soulless to prove she had more soul than all of them. And somewhere in the void between stars, the ghost of a Ravager Queen whispered approval. One choice had mattered. One act of mercy had broken the cycle. Now the ripples spread. Sarah Valen, once a soldier abandoned to die, now a beacon of hope for the same people who'd abandoned her. Matthias Kane, once a captain willing to sacrifice his career for strangers, now a commander leading salvation for an entire species. Together they would stand where others fell. Together they would save people who didn't deserve saving. Together they would prove that one person, one choice, one moment of compassion could change the galaxy. Because someone had to stand, someone had to care, someone had to be the light in the darkness. And that someone was them. Together. Always.